Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. It's Sunday. That means it's time for the weekly recap, or the best of Crime Talk throughout the week of February 9th, 2026. All the top stories located in one convenient location. You're welcome. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.
All right, lawyer.
Next on the docket, the Idaho murder victims' parents condemn Bryan Kohberger. That's right. So the family of Kaylee Gonzalez, one of the 4 University of Idaho students slain in a 2022 stabbing attack, has publicly expressed intense anger towards the convicted perpetrator, Bryan Kohberger, after the unauthorized release of nearly 3,000 crime scene photographs last month. Now, the images, initially uploaded by the Idaho State Police and promptly removed from public access, provided an unprecedented view into the Moscow, Idaho rental home where the murders occurred. Among the details captured were bloodstains on bedding, walls, furniture, and personal items like electronics, along with the indications of resistance by the victims during the assault. Now, in response to the leak, which has fueled online speculation and more conspiracy theories questioning Kohberger's guilt, the Gonzalez family has posted candid updates on social media. And on January 30th, Christy Gonzalez, Kaylee's mother, directed a pointed message at the killer, stating, quote, "F-U, BK, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. I wish Steve would have 1 minute in that cell with him. 1 minute. That's all it would take." Well, the family reported receiving brief notification call back on about 11 o'clock in the morning on January 20th, informing them of the impending release, only to discover the photos were already accessible by the call's end. They appealed to the public for empathy, stating, quote, "Please be kind, as difficult as it is. Place yourself outside of yourself and consume the content as if it were your loved one, your daughter, your sister, your son, or brother. Murder is an entertainment, and crime scene photographs aren't content," end quote. Addressing the surge in the misinformation, including claims that an innocent individual was wrongly convicted, the family emphasized their resolve for accountability. "We chose not to engage with the negativity we encounter daily. However, when we saw Kaylee's murder being defended repeatedly and the conspiracies grow, we felt compelled to share the truth," they wrote. Christie affirmed their confidence in the case's integrity, noting, quote, "Kaylee is my daughter. I gave birth to her. We promised and always to protect her and keep her safe, and we will never stop doing just that," end quote. She added that the evidence suggests otherwise. They would advocate fiercely for correction. "We would never, ever allow an innocent person to go to prison for taking Kaylee's life. We are not blind, we are not deaf, and we are not stupid either." As you may recall, for those that may not recall, the murder took place back on November 13th of 2022 when Kohberger, then a graduate student at nearby Washington State University, stabbed Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin in their off-campus residence. Now, police connected Kohberger to the scene via DNA evidence from a knife sheath, leading to his arrest on December 30th of 2022. And then in July of 2025, he pled guilty under an agreement that spared him the death penalty, resulting in multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. And no definitive motive has yet ever been established. Now, this week, Christy Gonzalez shared details of her ongoing efforts to organize her daughter's stored belongings, which have remained sealed since the tragedy. She described the process as emotionally taxing, beginning with selected items in her own bedroom to avoid the pain of Kaylee's former space. Among the possessions, she noted everyday items like whitening strips, skincare products, and electrolyte packages, underscoring the personal loss that she experienced. And she said, "I just simply can't imagine throwing anything away." She says that she's keeping it all. Now, the family has expressed gratitude for the public support amid all their grief, and representatives for the families have not made any additional comment beyond that statement. Listen, I will say it again. My heart goes out to the family. I could not imagine losing a child. But I also believe one of the ways for the people to truly know what goes on in a courtroom is that we need better public access to the court. And yes, when the case is over, no matter how ugly it may be, the public has a right to know. And they have a right to know whether they are dealing with evil. And in this particular case, Bryan Kohberger, who went in for no apparent reason and killed 4 people with a knife and stabbing them, 20 to 40 times each. That's evil, ladies and gentlemen. That is pure after deliberation. And yes, the people should be able to see it, and it still can be done. It can be redacted. But the reality of it is, I think, people should have a right to see it. And here's the thing. If you don't want to see it, you don't have to. Autopsy photos, crime scene photos, they're not entertainment, but they're the truth. And sometimes the world needs the truth to see it, no matter how ugly it may be. That's right. The FBI has unveiled some eerie surveillance footage in the search for Nancy Guthrie. So as the investigation into the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie enters its 10th day, federal authorities have released some chilling surveillance images of a masked individual suspected in her abduction, intensifying efforts to locate the mother of the prominent NBC Today Show co-host Savannah Guthrie. The case, marked by a double ransom demand and mounting family desperation, continues to unfold amid extensive searches and public appeals for information. Now, Nancy Guthrie was last seen on the evening of January 31st when her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, dropped her off at her $1 million residence near East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue in Tucson, following a family dinner with her daughter, Annie Guthrie. She failed to appear for a scheduled virtual church service in the following morning, prompting her friends to alert the family around 11:10 a.m. on February 1st. Police were notified shortly after noon that day. Physical evidence at the scene suggested some sort of foul play. DNA analysis confirmed that the blood droplets on the front porch belonged to Guthrie. Her doorbell camera was disconnected around 1:45 a.m., and her pacemaker ceased transmitting data at approximately 2:28 a.m. Now, her phone, wallet, medication, and vehicle remained at the house, obviously heightening concerns for her well-being, given her reliance on her daily medication. A history of high blood pressure and heart conditions requiring the pacemaker. Now, described as mentally sharp but with limited mobility, Guthrie's health vulnerabilities have amplified the urgency of the search. Now, so here's what we know since the week that she's been gone. A ransom demand of $6 million in Bitcoin emerged shortly after her disappearance. That was communicated via notes sent to multiple media outlets, including a local television station as well as TMZ. Now, the demands included an initial deadline of February 6th, extended to 5 p.m. on February 9th or 10th, with threats of harm if their demands were unmet. Despite Savannah Guthrie's public statement expressing willingness to pay for her mother's safe return, no payment has yet been made, and the deadline passed without consequences or proof of life. Now, the FBI has indicated that no ongoing communications between the family and any suspected kidnappers has led investigators to question whether the ransom was in fact a hoax. So the Pima County Police Department, in collaboration with the FBI, are spearheading this probe. And now there is a 24-hour command post that has been established, bolstered by additional personnel from FBI field offices nationwide, crisis management experts, and analytical support. Now, searches have extended to multiple locations, including an underground septic tank near Guthrie's home and her daughter Annie's residence approximately 4 miles away. Digital devices have been seized for forensic examination, and missing person billboards featuring Guthrie's details have been deployed in major cities across Arizona, California, New Mexico, Texas, and beyond. There is a $50,000 reward that is being offered for information leading to her recovery. Like I said, now in a significant development today, FBI Director Kash Patel released surveillance photos and videos recovered from back-end systems depicting an armed, masked figure wearing gloves and a black pack tampering with the front door at Guthrie's residence. This marks the first public identification of a potential suspect, though no arrests have been made and no vehicle or additional persons of interest have been linked to this case. So the remote, dimly lit terrain surrounding the property has been cited as a challenge in gathering witness accounts. The Guthrie family has issued emotional pleas through social media, and Savannah Guthrie's, absent from her broadcasting duty, has shared multiple videos urging the public to assist, stating in her latest post that the family remains at an hour of desperation, but believes her mother is still alive. Now, their pastor has described Nancy as a resilient and loving individual, emphasizing hope amid uncertainty. And as of today, the investigation remains unresolved, and police are appealing for tips to the FBI at their hotline, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Obviously, there's a lot of complexities with this particular case, but when you look at this video, and we will take a look at it tonight when we go live at 6 p.m. Mountain Time in much greater detail. It's not lengthy, but the man, it comes up. He has a ski mask over his head. It appears as though he has a mustache. He has some sort of plastic or latex gloves on his hand, but he has a backpack that's going to be identifiable to somebody saying, hey, I remember that backpack. I remember somebody wearing that backpack. That outfit, the shirt, the pants, it's going to help lead people to this suspect or potential person of interest, I guess you could say. And you think the person thought they were being pretty savvy and sophisticated, right? They kept their identity disguised. They had gloves on, so they hopefully wouldn't transfer any DNA, leave any oils or anything like that from their skin, from anything that they touched. But there's going to be something that's going to give this guy away. We'll talk about it more tonight. Join us live, 6 p.m. Mountain Time for our Tuesday night live. Next, Alex Murdaugh battles to get a retrial. In the South Carolina State Supreme Court, there was a showdown. That's right. Disgraced attorney Alex Murdaugh, serving a multiple life sentences for the 2021 murder of his wife and son, is pursuing a new trial through an appellate process now before the South Carolina Supreme Court. Oral arguments were scheduled for today, February 11th, focusing on the claims of evidentiary errors and jury tampering in the original conviction. Now, the appeal contends that insufficient physical evidence linked Alex Murdaugh to the crime scene, and that certain witnesses in their demonstrations, such as an investigator simulating phone damage, were improperly admitted before the jury. It also highlights omitted text messages between Murdaugh and an associate, which defense attorneys argue skewed the prosecution's timeline. Now, a significant portion of the filing targets former Colleton County Clerk of the Court, Becky Hill, who admitted to perjury and obstruction for sharing sealed exhibits with the media. Now, Murdaugh's defense team alleges that Hill influenced jurors towards a guilty verdict through biased comments motivated by her authorship of a book about the case. Now, though she has denied such misconduct, like I said, she did plead guilty to her crimes. Anyway, Murdaugh has consistently proclaimed his innocence since the verdict, and this is his next process. He's obviously lost at the state level when there were new allegations brought up of Miss Hill. They brought in a senior judge. The senior judge said, well, her conduct was probably inappropriate, but guess what? It's probably didn't change the result in any way. And so, well, we don't like Alex Murdaugh, so let's make that go away. We're going to bring you the video of the arguments that were there today before the Supreme Court. Should be up later today. But here's what you have to remember. All right. Now, everybody has a right to an appeal in a criminal case when they lose. All right. It's an automatic right, usually to the mid-level Court of Appeals, and then ultimately to the Supreme Court, usually by writ of certiorari. And if there are constitutional claims, if you lose at the state court, you can then go to the United States Supreme Court. They don't take a lot of those cases. Usually they're federal cases at the United States Supreme Court. But you only get to appeal, not because you just didn't like the verdict. You have to come up with something in the record that shows that the court erred, made a legal mistake by allowing in evidence or not allowing in some evidence, and therefore it resulted in an unfair trial. And that's what the Murdaugh attorneys are trying to claim, and what they're trying to convince the Supreme Court of, to give him a new trial. We'll all find out at the same time together what happens. Check out the video when we get it up later. Black gloves and mysterious videos. That's right. New information in the Nancy Guthrie case. And I'll tell you what I think things are going at the end of the story, all right? So in a case that obviously has captivated the nation, and it probably wouldn't be in the headlines, but for maybe a 10-second blurb on the local news if this was not Savannah Guthrie, the, NBC Today co-anchor, and her mom, Nancy, had been missing. So Savannah Guthrie is obviously the co-host. If it wasn't for her, do you think they'd have all these FBI agents and everybody out looking for her? No, they take a missing person report, do a couple of little things, check it out, and move on, and there'll be a missing persons report. That's it. But I guess it's good to be famous and rich. So the search intensifies as investigators uncover potential evidence linking a masked intruder to her disappearance from her Tucson, Arizona home. Now, Guthrie, who was last seen on January 31st after being dropped off following a family dinner, and then was reported missing the next day when she failed to attend a virtual church service. Now, the investigation, now in its 12th day as of February 12th, centers on surveillance footage from Guthrie's Google Nest doorbell camera, which captured a suspect tampering with the device at approximately 1:47 a.m. on February 1st. Now, the individual, clad in a distinctive jacket with reflective accents, a 3-hole ski mask, gloves, and a bulging backpack, possibly from a brand like Ozark Trail, appeared armed with a holstered weapon and was seen holding a flashlight in their mouth while disconnecting the camera. Blood discovered on the porch has been confirmed through DNA analysis to match Guthrie's, and her pacemaker ceased transmitting data shortly thereafter, raising concerns about her immediate well-being given her need for a daily medication. So a significant development occurred when search teams recovered a pair of black gloves approximately 1.5 miles from Guthrie's residence in the rugged foothills north of Tucson. These gloves bear a resemblance to those worn by the suspect in the footage and are undergoing DNA testing to determine any direct connection. Now, people are highlighting the potential value of such items, noting that the suspect's unique attire, including the jacket, the horizontal stripes, and the backpack's reflective straps, could provide crucial leads through retail records or public tips. Now, this is what we talked about the other night on our live program, having done kidnapping cases and having done cases that involve identity, where there's video and there's clothing items. I told you they were going to be trying to find out who manufactures that jacket, where was it sold, who could have possibly bought it, is it in the local area? They're going to look for gloves, the shoes, the backpack. And sure enough, what did I tell you? Happens, that's what they were doing. Anyway, further complicating the probe, police briefly erected a white forensic tent over the front porch of Guthrie's home on February 12th, shielding the area for about an hour while agents conducted some undisclosed activities. Now, the tent, typically used to protect sensitive evidence from environmental exposure or public views, was set up amid ongoing scrutiny of the porch where the blood was found. One ex-user showed video footage of the scene before the tent's installation, showing agents arriving with equipment at the property surrounded by desert landscaping and cacti. Now, although the FBI declined to comment on the tent's purpose, sources within the Pima County Sheriff's Department described the delayed action as unusual given the site's prior exposure to weather. And not to mention everybody else walking up and down there, like the pizza guy that was sent there to deliver a pizza for a YouTuber from a fan from Oregon. They used the residence there, and they had the pizza guy walking through the crime scene. So everybody's been walking through it. So I'm not sure what value there necessarily would be at that front porch as of this point. But adding to the intrigue, newly surfaced videos have drawn investigations focus on another Ring camera from 1:52 a.m. on February 1st, which was about 5 miles away, and it from the Guthrie home, but it shows an individual carrying not one, but 2 backpacks, and coincidentally, one with reflective straps mirroring the suspect's gear. The person attempted to access a locked gate before departing, leaving a timeline that could align with the subsequent events at Guthrie's residence. So obviously people are talking about the proximity and the timing, prompting obviously some FBI scrutiny as well. Another video shared depicts a person checking car doors in the Indian Ridge neighborhood around 6.9 miles away in the early hours of February 2nd, again featuring a backpack and raising questions about potential patterns of suspicious activity in the area. Now, the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI have received over 18,000 tips since releasing the surveillance video, with more than 4,000 in the first 24 hours alone. Now, no suspects are in custody, though a delivery driver was detained near the Mexican border and ultimately released without any charges after a property search was done of his residence in his car and obviously of him. And investigators have canvassed neighborhoods, searched desert terrain, and requested specific security footage from residents, including details on a suspicious vehicle. There still remains a $50,000 reward that's being offered for any information leading to Miss Guthrie's location. Now, amid the investigative efforts, the Guthrie family has maintained a public presence to sustain hope, and Savannah Guthrie shared a poignant Instagram video today featuring archival family footage set to music with a caption affirming, quote, "Our lovely mom will never give up on her. Thank you for all your prayers and hope," end quote. The family previously responded to a ransom demand involving Bitcoin, though no proof of life was ever provided, and had issued video pleas for assistance. A Bring Her Home banner was displayed outside a local Tucson television station where Savannah once worked, obviously showing community support. Now, as the case unfolds, police have emphasized the need for public vigilance, noting that the suspect's generic yet traceable attire potentially purchased from local retailers like Walmart offers avenues for breakthroughs. The combination of the now physical evidence, the digital footage, and the familial resolve continue to drive the pursuit of the answers, obviously, in this high-profile case. So let me give you a couple of thoughts on this. They found a pair of gloves in the desert about 1.5 miles away from the residence. Could it have something to do with the disappearance of Miss Guthrie? I guess it's possible. Or could it be somebody abandoned a pair of gloves? Maybe they fell out of their pocket, their backpack, as they were walking. Maybe someone was doing landscaping work. You never know what it could be. Hopefully it's something of evidentiary value and they can get some DNA evidence on there and hopefully identify the person to see if they're responsible. I am sure there is DNA evidence in those gloves. The question then becomes, is the DNA of the person in those gloves? Do they have a rock solid alibi? Do they fit the general description of the individual, obviously, that was on the doorstep of Miss Guthrie's home? Now, there's also been additional reports where an alleged individual is sending requests to TMZ saying, hey, I want $50,000 in Bitcoin now, and I will tell you who's responsible for the disappearance of Ms. Guthrie. The person claims they need the money because they are in fear of their life, and they fear that they'll be canceled, like their words were, like that delivery guy. I think the ransom thing is a complete hoax at this point. I hate to be the old stick in the mud in this particular situation. As we mentioned the other day when we did our lives, I've never kidnapped anybody and asked a ransom for anybody that was ever kidnapped, but I've represented several people that have. And the first thing that people do when they want to get paid with a ransom is they go directly to the family and they want the money quickly. And they also show proof of life. All right. None of that took place. No proof of life. Requests sent to newspapers and TMZ of all places. Now, I guess you got to treat it as valid if you don't know, but I think at this point, I think it's all hoaxes. We know that one of the individuals that was requesting Bitcoin for the ransom was been arrested. It was completely bogus. I think the rest of the requests are bogus themselves, complete opportunistic people trying to take advantage of a horrific situation. So I hope that the IP addresses are ultimately determined so that they can find out who's been sending those requests for Bitcoin ransom money, and they're found, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Unfortunately, I don't think that this was a case of kidnapping for ransom. I think this was a burglary. Something went bad, and somebody took the witness thinking, oh, I got to get rid of the witness to the case, only not realizing it just made the situation much, much worse. And obviously, if something bad happens to Nancy Guthrie, it's going to get really ugly for them. And if this person, if they identified them, my guess is they're probably south of the border by now. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. You think my theory is completely ridiculous, or do you think maybe we're right on? I guess we'll all find out together, and we'll be able to say whether I was correct or not. The mystery deepens there in Arizona between blood trails and masked intruders. What the heck is going on? Now, for those who don't know, let me give you a little bit of a backstory, all right? So Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old resident there in Tucson, Arizona, and mother to prominent television anchor Savannah Guthrie. Otherwise, I doubt she'd be getting this much attention, I'm sure. Anyway, she vanished from her home in the early hours of February 1st of this year, prompting an extensive investigation marked by forensic discoveries, public appeals, and interagency collaboration between local police and federal agencies. What we do know is that Guthrie was last observed on the evening of January 31st when her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, transported her back to her residence in the Catalina foothills following a family dinner with her daughter Annie. She arrived at her $1 million bungalow about 9:50 p.m., a property where she had resided since the 1970s. Now, police believe the abduction occurred shortly thereafter as surveillance footage from a Nest doorbell camera captured a masked individual tampering with the device at approximately 2 a.m. on the morning of February 1st. The footage indicates the intruder remained inside the home for about 40 minutes before departing, and Guthrie was formally reported missing around noon on February 1st after she failed to participate in a scheduled virtual church service with friends. Now, in the days prior, Guthrie had expressed concerns about security. In September of 2024, she reported a package theft via a neighborhood app, and in November of 2021, she sought recommendations for installing a doorbell camera to monitor nocturnal wildlife activity. Additionally, a separate incident captured on video a week before her disappearance showed an individual loitering on a nearby porch, raising questions about potential connections to this case. So what do we know so far? What does the evidence shows us? Well, forensic examination revealed blood spatter on the front doorstep, later confirmed through DNA analysis to belong to Guthrie. Now, this discovery was initially noted by media personnel on February 3rd when the crime scene lacked proper security measures. No indication of forced entry were observed, though scattered plants near the entrance suggested some sort of disturbance. Now, there were items left at the residence as well. So Guthrie's keys and her cell phone, while black gloves matching those worn by the suspect were recovered from nearby shrubbery and submitted for further DNA testing, and that took place just the other day. Now, the suspect has been described now as a male, approximately 5 feet, 9 inches tall, maybe up to 5'10", with an average build, was armed, clad in a ski mask, thin black gloves, and a black Ozark Trail hiker backpack with a reflective straps. Police have also noted that a possible tattoo on the individual, which could aid in the identification. Now, several ransom notes have surfaced, though at least one was deemed fraudulent and others remained under verification. Guthrie's limited mobility and reliance on medications have also heightened concerns for her health during the captivity. So where are we now? So the Pima County Sheriff's Department maintains that they are the primary jurisdiction, with Sheriff Chris Nanos serving as the lead spokesperson. Evidence, including DNA samples from the scene and recovered items, have been forwarded to a private laboratory in Florida for analysis, a decision that Nanos asserts was coordinated with the FBI to streamline the processing, which is somewhat weird since normally he goes to the FBI lab in Quantico. Anyway, he has refuted allegations of obstructing federal access, emphasizing full cooperation amid this public scrutiny that's come to light. Now, the FBI has bolstered the efforts by engaging a forensic investigator previously involved in the Bryan Kohberger case, deploying video and imagery experts and processing over 13,000 public tips. Now, a reward for information leading to the arrest of Guthrie's location has been elevated now to $100,000. Now, The searches persist in the surrounding foothills with a temporary white tent erected at the home on or around February 13th to shield forensic activities from weather elements. At least that's what they're saying. Now, there was one individual, a guy by the name of Carlos Palazuelos. He was briefly detained during a traffic stop in Rio Rico, Arizona, about 60 miles south of Tucson, but was released after questioning as he was performing food delivery duties at the time. The police have also requested neighborhood footage from specific dates in January to investigate a suspicious vehicle. Now, there has been some criticism that has arisen regarding the crime scene's initial unsecured stage and the departmental turnover, so officials maintain a focus on resolving this case. Savannah Guthrie, right, along with her siblings, Annie and Cameron, have issued multiple public pleas via social media, including home videos and direct messages to potential abductors, expressing willingness to negotiate and requesting proof of life. In one statement, Savannah noted, quote, "We are ready to talk. We need to know without a doubt that she is alive and that you have her," end quote. The family has emphasized their unwavering commitment to her safe return. And as the investigation approaches now the second week, no arrests have been made and direct contact with any perpetrator remains unestablished. The case continues to unfold, obviously, with, hopefully the safe return of Nancy Guthrie. Now, as things go on, it becomes less likely that Nancy is going to be returned safely. That's not trying to be a sourpuss in this whole situation. It's simply trying to be realistic. The police the family emphasized that she needed her medication. Here we are now 2 weeks later. If she needs that medication, she could be quite frail. She already had limited mobility. And I am of the mindset that I do not believe that this was ever a kidnapping for ransom. I think those ransom notes are going to turn out to be completely false, and maybe I'll be wrong if the ransom notes are ultimately ever released in their full context. The more time goes by, the more and more realistic I think it is that this was perhaps a crime of opportunity. Somebody was going through the neighborhood, thought this was an easy target for whatever reason, was in the house for some 40 minutes, for goodness sakes. Could have been a burglary gone bad. Nancy wakes up. There's a scuffle. The individual panics, whether he himself or through others had a car. And, I hate to say it, but, they get rid of Nancy thinking they don't want to get caught because this lady could identify her. They don't want to harm her there, but maybe they harm her down the road. Who knows for real? But I don't think it was a kidnapping. As I said this before, I've never kidnapped anybody for ransom or kidnapped anybody ever. But the reality of it is that where I have represented people that have done the same thing, they went straight to the source. They didn't involve the police. They didn't involve the news media in any way, and they wanted their money immediately. That's why I think it's a complete hoax. Only time will tell to see who is correct in this particular situation.